Safety, safety first. What was I doing? What was I doing? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Can you hear that? Hello, hello! My name is Zinzer J. I use they, them pronouns, and welcome to They BCs.
They BC.
Y'all have been so generous with sending in your own inquiries, and I'm so grateful. Please keep them coming. As Glennon Doyle says, an unasked question can quickly become a prejudice. So thank you for asking the questions most are too afraid to admit that they have. Last week, I received this email.
You said you're a trans non-binary, but I thought being a trans meant you wanted to become a woman, and non-binary meant you're neither. Am I missing something? Not hate, just confused.
Let's explore the trans umbrella. The definition of transgender is denoting or relating to a person whose gender identity does not correspond with the sex they were assigned at birth. And a reminder from a previous episode that cisgender means your gender identity does correspond with your assigned sex at birth. As transgender activist and former D1 athlete Schuyler Bailar explains, trans and cis come from Latin roots. Trans means to go beyond a boundary, and cis means to remain on the same side. So being transgender can apply to anyone whose gender identity goes beyond the boundary placed on them. Well, yes, most people do think of trans men and trans women. The transgender umbrella can also include agender, gender fluid, gender queer, non-binary, gender non-conforming, omnigender, two-spirit, mahu, and the list goes on. And you might be thinking,
okay, sure, but aren't a lot of these like the same thing? I'm not really understanding the difference between a lot of them.
We will delve into the deeper nuances of these identities in future episodes. But for right now, try to think of these terms as athletes playing a sport. We both play baseball, but he's a catcher and I'm a shortstop. Technically, you could say, well, you're the same, you both play the same sport, but our positions within the game make our experiences very different. Or, depending on what identities you're comparing, you could go one further and say, sure, we both play basketball, but he's Michael Jordan and I'm Bugs Bunny.
What's up, Doc?
We may play on the same team, but he has 6 championship rings and I'm a rabbit. There's no reason to compare us. And it's important to note that not all non-binary people associate themselves with being trans. I think some NB folks might omit transgender from their identity because they want to avoid explaining this common confusion. Or they want to highlight the unique experience of being non-binary. Or maybe trans simply doesn't resonate with them. And that's okay too. As deaf and genderqueer artist and activist Chella Man puts it, I am non-binary and trans. But honestly, it's up to every individual, because I know some non-binary people who don't like to identify as trans. It's just whatever words you connect with. Language can be incredible because it can connect us with community, but at the same time it can be so limiting, because it can confine you into whatever that specific definition is. At the end of the day, when someone tells you who and or what they are, believe them. On another note, I wanted to highlight some of the phrasing in the email I received. You said you were a trans non-binary, but I thought being a trans meant it's important to emphasize that transgender is an adjective, not a noun. So if you're going to say trans, you need to be sure to include a noun after it, like a transgender person or a non-binary hottie. And while this might sound nitpicky, I've noticed that the people who want to downplay this distinction are the same folks who refuse to use they as my singular pronoun because it's grammatically incorrect. 1, no it's not. And 2, you're picking and choosing what linguistic hills to die on. As always, if there are questions or topics you'd love to have covered, you can email me at theybcs@gmail.com or shoot me a DM on Instagram. Anonymous and judgment-free. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll join me again. And in the meantime, keep it LGBT cute.